Hello, everybody. Welcome to our story circle today. I'm very excited to be here with everybody with some stories to share. So previously, we have been doing this format a little bit different. We've changed things up quite a bit. And so I'm kind of playing catch up a little bit. So please bear with me while I try and work out all of these kinks today in the show. So that we do have 4 storytellers today that you'll hear from. So I'm going to start with a story just to kind of introduce this evening. We then will hear from 2 of our storytellers who have a digital story to share. So we're going to watch their story. They're going to talk a bit about it. Then we will have another story afterwards, a live told story. And yeah, we'll get going. So I'm going to just start here with my story. I'm just making sure. There's one person that I was hoping would be able to hear us. So I hope that he is able to watch. Because this is very much a story and dedication dedicated to him. So this is called My Visitor. In order to invite a visitor into your house, you must open a door. I don't remember when it was that I came to open my door to a strange and upsetting visitor, but somehow I did. And while this visitor brought with her some wonderful gifts, she eventually outwore her welcome. The most troublesome of my reactions to my visitor are called symptoms, and as they progressed, I became less and less able to cope. Several years of attempts to evict my visitor ensued. While accompanied with some talking therapy, my treatment was primarily chemical medication. After 2 years of consistently rising doses and consistently worsening symptoms, I was admitted to hospital where my visitor was given a name: schizophrenia. I continued treatments which remained unsuccessful and left me trapped, locked up alone with my visitor. If my doctors guessed why these treatments were so ineffective in me, they didn't share their hypotheses with me. My interpretation was that I was simply not accepting any more visitors. I already had one too many. My door was closed to visitors, and try as they might, my doctors could not get in. And then my sister introduced me to Clifford Cardinal. There was a moment during our first meeting that stands up the tallest. After a couple of hours of discussion in his office where we introduced ourselves to one another and Clifford offered to heal me, he joined me outside for a cigarette. As we were talking, a man approached me to say hello. He was unfamiliar to me, but seemed to think we were old friends. He excitedly told me what new things he was up to and where his career was taking him. Eventually, he left. Clifford told me that the man was lying. He said that that was something he never understood, the motivation to lie. I had recently been doing a fair amount of thinking on that topic, and so I shared my theory with him. I said that I believe people are always trying to tell the truth, but some of them use fiction to do it. Clifford looked at me. His look had a quality that I hadn't noticed in any of my previous encounters with other professionals who had tried so hard to help me. It was the look of consideration. He listened to what I said and considered that I may have knowledge to share. And with that look, he opened his door. He extended an invitation to me. And even though my door was locked to visitors, he managed to find a way to invite me through his door so that I didn't have to be alone. His medicine came after that. The next time we met was in his living room, and he prepared strong medicines that his people have been using for more than 2,000 years. He called the grandfathers, and I breathed his cures into my lungs. I may not remember when I had opened my door to let in my visitor, but it was during this ceremony that I managed to open it again, to let my unwelcome visitor slip out again. It came out in the shape of a bee, out of one of my nostrils and onto the floor of the living room, in what is undeniably the most surreal moment of my life. There is, of course, much more to my story, but why I am telling this part of it today is that it is Canada Day, the day that celebrates when Clifford's ancestors opened their doors to strange and upsetting visitors. A visitor that not only decided to move in permanently, but also did its best to erase everything that had lived there before. And I sit here so grateful that despite my ancestors' efforts, his culture remains. And I am humbled that despite all of the atrocities that have been opposed upon your people, Clifford, you still found it in you to open your door to me. And I am hopeful that storytelling, sharing our stories with one another, can nourish the ground with truths. Thank you very much. I realized partway through that story that I have neglected my opening to this piece with a land acknowledgement. So I do apologize about that. And let's do that right away. So I welcome you wherever you may sit from my home that sits on Treaty 8 land. A treaty is an inheritance, a responsibility, and a relationship. We acknowledge Treaty 8 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree and Dene. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta, regions 1, 4, 5, and 6, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge, keepers, and elders who are still with us today, and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on or are visiting. Okay, so now to share some stories, we have a couple of storytellers who had created some digital stories. So we are going to speak first with Chichanie. Hello.
Hi, Alicia.
How are you?
Good.
Good. So do you want to tell everybody a little bit about your story before we play it?
Yeah. Uh, you know, I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I honor my ancestors. And for me, writing this story has helped me heal in so many ways. I experienced the trauma in residential school, and I think the only way to for me to heal was to write from a child's perspective. And this is what I created, and this is a memory that never leaves me. And it's like yesterday, and this is from I think when I was 6 years old, 5 or 6, yeah. And my heart goes out to all the kids, that stayed in there for 10 months. I stayed in there for 10 months, and anyways, It's very emotional today.
Yes. Thank you so much. So we will play your story now.
Okay.
In appearance. Her unruly black hair always unkept.
Oh,
Most days her fine frizzy hair flew in every direction. She was 7 then. Martha wasn't your average teenage kid. Intense black piercing eyes is what made her so different from the rest of us. They were bottomless and black, so annoying. But oh, she was so mysterious. Martha never smiled. Martha's bed was placed at the very southern end of the dorm, adjacent to the washroom. She was placed there because she wet her bed every night. I watched this little Danae kid every morning, how quickly she would meet her fate. Obediently, she falls and prostrates next to her little metal bed, shivering from the cold blast of morning air. Her soiled pajamas cling tightly to her wiry body. We got to pray to God for forgiveness first. Martha's fate comes next. We are lined up to witness one of the numerous charades of justice conducted by the Grey Nuns. I was told in catechism class that Jesus Christ died for our sins. Martha, she died for those nuns' sins. I was told in catechism class Jesus Christ was prayed in front of his people. Martha, that little Danae girl, was prayed in front of her own people. I was told in catechism class Jesus Christ carried his cross to his death. Martha, that little Danae girl, carried her smelly sheets to a dark place. Her black, piercing eyes showed her sorrow. Her tiny feet bore witness to the burden she carried, moving slowly, some girls mocking her, jeering at her. She relentlessly continues as though she was climbing a mountain. Shivering, her small, fragile body lurches forward. No sound escapes her blue-colored lips. Her deep black eyes search for support. Only eyes of fear and pity dare meet hers. Who would want to trade places with her? Who would want to be implicated? Who is brave enough to rescue Martha? No one. Her wet sheets drag behind her, leaving long marks on the cold, sterile floor and forever in my soul. For years, I watched her helplessly. Sometimes I saw her black eyes weeping, but no tears ever came. Those eyes still haunt me when I think of Martha. A lump forms in my throat, and I'm flooded with a mixture of pain and guilt. And it still weighs heavily on my shoulders. But what could I do? I was only a child. That was Martha, that little Denny girl who never smiled. Alone in the moonlight by the banks of the Athabasca River, I think of Martha. Somehow, us mission Canaries developed a kindred spirit during a traumatic time, but yet we never developed a friendship. Somehow, we lived trying to forget the horror and live our tragic lives. Some made it, while others never made it, just like Martha. You see, Martha, she's gone. She had done herself in. She killed herself. I say to the pale moonlight, expecting an answer. Where are you, Martha? I say to the moon. I tell you, Martha, I pissed my bed too. I never told anyone. I was never brave like you.
Thank you so much. That was just so heartbreaking, that story.
Yeah, it is. It really is heartbreaking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't talk about it without feeling so emotional.
Yeah.
Because trauma is, I don't know, I always feel like I'm scarred by her eyes, you know? I'm scarred by her, I don't know. Yeah. But anyways, thank you for, I can't,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
And so next we are going to hear from Roxanne. Hi, Roxanne.
Hi, I'm
Good to
hoping
see
that
you.
good to see you. I'm very honored to be here.
Oh, we are delighted to have you. Thank you so much. I am unfortunately so green with a lot of this technology stuff, so I had needed to resolve a couple things. Okay, I think I'm good. So, do you want to tell us anything at the start of your story, or should we just roll right into it?
Well, one of the things I wanted to share is growing up was listening to the women and my aunties, my grandma, and so when they would share stories, there was always a pot of tea in the center of the table in the bannock. And the younger people, if they wanted to listen, were able to sit around the table because there's only a certain amount of chairs that in our houses back then. So the elders would sit in the middle, and we grew up listening to the language. I'm coming from Edmonton, which is Treaty 6 with the land acknowledgements. I'm Treaty 7, and my dad is from the north, so Dene. I have Blackfoot Dene blood in me. One of the things that was really interesting was how communication and stories were very important and how language was tied to that. The transmission of the language was vital. So by being able to share these stories, connected us to the past and to the future, what was to come. And I loved listening to my aunties, my grandmas, my mom. And to me, I grew up when they were trying to get us to convert to English. So a lot of the people grew up knowing the Blackfoot language, but as soon as you immerse yourself into the residential schools, that's the one thing that they want you to do is conform. So being in Treaty 6, I've learned, I'd say, Absis, the Cree language. I have a lot of Cree friends, a lot of relatives, and that's how I met Clifford, really, was through the University of Alberta. And Clifford, like you said, was a visitor who opened amazing doors. And he shared with me his thesis, and I was overwhelmed by it because my parents met in the Charles Council, and that was the outcome of a lot of the children that got sick, tuberculosis, malnutrition, the experimentation that was being done in residential schools. So my parents one came from the south, she was Blackfoot, and my dad came from the north, and he was Dene Cho Métis. And they met here in Edmonton. So there's a lot of history for the Charles Council, how the people were sent to Edmonton here to receive medical care. And with that, there's a lot of history that has been left out, and especially from the women. And that's what I wanted to bring, was just to be able to share with you the grandmothers and what I observe through my own lived experience. So.
Okay. So now we will show your story here. Thank you so much. Just bear with me 1 second.
When my mom became very ill, she spoke only Blackfoot. Holding out her hands, someone that we could not see, I hear those words in my sleep. Spomoget Damaskanista Spomoget. Help me. I am pitiful. Help me. She wanted to die at home, but my relatives stampeded into our little home in Bowness and took her to the hospital. A little while later, I was watching Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour in my flannel nightgown with my brothers when I felt my mother leave. I was 16 and she was 45. When you left, Mom, I lost a year. I woke one night realizing that I could not physically hold you. I had to let you go, but I held on to your image. That's all I could do. Many times I lost hope in myself. You held me at my weakest moments, and I'd allow myself to fall into a drug-induced state, only to awaken to you gone. You never came to visit me in my dream world. You stayed away because you knew I was mad at you for leaving me. Remember when you told me that you longed to hold your grandchildren? You longed to hold them close and sing them a Blackfoot lullaby. Cheryl was in labor and Dad and Uncle Morris had to drive her into Lethbridge. Mom, they had no license, both of them. Imagine that. When I came home from school, no one heard if Cheryl had her baby yet, so I went to my room, put the knives in the door and a towel across the floor, and I lit a smoke. I puffed and I acted like I was the expected father. The cigarette made me lightheaded, and I eventually fell into a deep slumber. There was light streaming down from the ceiling like a stage light, and a woman sat on one of those hard wooden chairs holding and singing to the baby. She had a bun in her hair, and I knew it was you. You knew it was me. You said, "Look at her. Isn't she the most beautiful baby in the world?" I leaned in to smile at the baby, and I could smell the natural oils that kept your hair curly. "Could I comb your hair?" I asked. I took your bun apart and combed your hair and sang to the baby. How long we stayed in that dimension was enough to heal my broken heart. It could have been a century squeezed into a minute. Kayla came with me. We found a barber shop and I told the lady to cut my hair to the shaft. I wanted to stop dyeing my hair, to embrace my age, to not deny my gray, and to be proud of who I am. So I did that, Mom. I sat staring at the image of the woman staring back. She had no hair, and I stared at her to see if I could see into her soul, her heart, but her spirit was fleeting. I just celebrated my 54th birthday, the mirror image of 45. I see you sometimes staring back at me. When I see these images, I wonder who you were. I wonder who I am. I imagine my children and my grandchildren wondering about us. I'm not sure if it happened overnight or if it was a gradual thing, but one day I just happened to realize that I was living to die.
Beautiful. We just have you muted. If you want to unmute your... Oh, there you go.
Okay.
There, now we're good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Roxanne. That's just beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It's been a while since I've seen it. We worked on this project about, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, might be longer.
Mm-hmm.
But it was amazing. Karen Matthews and the Weasel Tail production, we got in touch with Judy and the ladies, and we were able to bring these productions together in a weekend. And so the magic was there, the gifts of the women that came. And Sunday we premiered it, and my daughter, my sister, Chichanie, and the other ladies that were there, was really quite neat. And to go back and revisit this is really quite something. Kind of gets to you because you share a piece of you and you don't know how that's going to be received. So yeah, it was to honor my grandmothers. And one of the things that had stuck with me is because the history has been hidden from us. And when I was in my undergrad, that's when I met, or after, I can't remember when, Clifford came around, and he was able to put a piece of that picture together for me because of my parents never spoke about their experience in residential school and Charles Council, just bits and pieces. So when you go and you do research, you breathe in spirit. And I think this is what comes together, is just magic, and it's unexplainable. So I was able to touch base with people that were born in Charles Council, that I met up with a man that's still living that remembered my father in Charles Council, and he shared with me all these pictures. And it blew me away to see my parents when they were young. And so to go back there and to be able to see that and to share that with my family, it was amazing, because probably about 3 years ago, the residential school that I attended on the Blood Reserve burnt down. So everything that was contained in there, from the photos to records, all went up in flames. And to me, I think it's sad that these buildings can't be left there as reminders for the rest of Canada. When people said that they didn't know that this was happening, in my mind, I tried to grapple with that. How can you not know where the Native children are? Why aren't they in the school system with the rest of the children? And so both my parents being residential school, me being residential school, my grandmother, that's 3 generations, and the impact. So by educating all of us and coming together and to share our stories only brings light and releases the pain, getting choked, but the pain that has been with our people, and the denial of some of the people that were in power that implemented this. So all their hands are stained with the blood of the children. And the only way that we can move forward is to honor those children's lives and honor those children's lives, and to let us not forget.
Thank you very much. Okay, so for those of you who have maybe tuned into a story circle before, you'll know that typically what we do is we just shoot out a theme. So this week, the theme, or this month, sorry, the theme was Canada. And then people can just write whatever they would like. So it can be a personal story, it can be a fictional story, it can be an essay, it can be whatever kind of story you want to tell. And then any storytellers are welcome. So if you are interested in participating in a future event, it's virtual variety night at gmail.com is our contact info. And yeah, so now we have our last storyteller of this evening is Meredith Shaw. Hello, Meredith.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Anything you want to say about your story before you dig in there, or
I
just
mean,
want
I
to begin?
think the only thing that I will say is I'll do my best. I'm very moved by the previous stories. So it will be a little bit tricky for me to get through my own story, but I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. So, and I'm sure everybody will understand the emotionality of this evening. So I'm sure the audience is very forgiving. So yeah, and I guess, and the other thing I will just say is, so mine is a personal essay that was written a few years ago. And so some of the details in it are no longer true, but the feeling and the meaning behind the story is the same. So my story is called My Eagle Feather. Give me a few minutes, I'll get there. I work as a mental health therapist in Musquecheese, a Plains Creek community in central Alberta. There's an eagle feather, decorated and displayed on the wall in my office. This is not a terribly unusual thing to have as a counselor in a Cree community. Most of my colleagues have similar feathers, similarly displayed, in their offices as well. No one has ever asked me where it came from, or how I came to have one, or why a Caucasian woman would have it. Perhaps some of my clients have wondered. When I was a tour guide at the Alberta Legislature building, I would stand, dressed in the Alberta tartan, next to the painting of former Lieutenant Governor Steinhauer, and talk about the eagle feathers in his regalia. The eagle is the animal closest to the Creator, I had been told to say, and therefore eagles are very sacred. Later, as I crossed the stage as a University of Alberta graduate, I noticed that the Indigenous students were being gifted eagle feathers along with their degrees. I vaguely remember one of my speakers at my convocation talking about the great honor it is to receive an eagle feather. Years later, just a few months ago, I noticed the feather on Dad's dresser with a handful of my late mother's other more precious belongings. Now, working in a Cree community and paying more attention to these sorts of things, I noticed the feather for the first time. Mom had an eagle feather? Yes, my dad said. I've been wondering what to do with it. How did Mom get an eagle feather? I asked him. And he told me. When my mom was sick, she made a short list of things she wanted to do before she died. One of them was to return to Cortes Island, to a retreat center named Hollyhock, which had been a place of great personal and spiritual growth for her at various times in her life. There, she took a course with a woman named Anne Mortifee, a musician. Anne's website says she has worked internationally with hospitals and hospice caregivers serving the dying and those suffering great loss. Anne invited my mom to visit in her home. The day before my mom came to visit, Anne found an eagle feather on her doorstep. Like the eagle had dropped it there on purpose, she said. She sensed that this feather was important, a feather of significance, and intended for someone special. The next day, when my mom came to visit and told Anne about her diagnosis and her wish to return to Hollyhock one last time before leaving this life, Anne gave her the feather. Mom was at a bit of a loss as to what to do with it. She decorated it with leather and beads as Anne had suggested that she do, and that was it. Back in my parents' bedroom, I turned to my father. You know about eagle feathers? I asked him. I told him what little I knew about eagle feathers and what a huge honor and sacred trust it was to be given one. I was wowed that Mom had been given one directly from the Creator to her, it seemed. Dad handed it to me and said, "It's yours." I was humbled. I was overwhelmed. I had some sense of the huge honor this moment was and how its connection to my mother moved me, and the sense of responsibility that I felt in taking it from him. I cried in his arms for several minutes. Dad, still awkward with his emotions, apologized for making me cry. "No, Dad, thank you. Tears aren't always bad things. Tears can be about being honored and humbled. Thank you." Sometime later, I took my feather to an elder in our office with tobacco for protocol and asked her to teach me how to decorate it and how to take care of it. She gave me some cloth and some sinew and offered some ideas. I redecorated it, incorporating my mom's beads and the elder's cloth. Now it's on my wall, not unlike the other eagle feathers on my colleagues' walls. Passed from the Creator to the eagle, to Anne, to Mom, to Dad, to me. In some ways, it's strange that I have it. As an outsider to the Cree culture, I feel a bit awkward about being its caretaker. On the other hand, I feel that the feather is right where it belongs. For now. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. Lovely. And I've just been so I'm going to there. I'll do this for a minute. What wonderful, wonderful stories that everyone has shared here today. I'm so moved and grateful to all of you for being here. Virtual Variety Nights is something that comes every Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Alberta time. And we'd love to have all of you viewers and people participate. Let us know if you're interested in taking part. So you can email us at virtualvarietynight@gmail.com. I am currently working on a website, so you can come check us out, and there won't be very much yet, but soon, hopefully there'll be more info at www.virtualvarietynight.com. And next week, what we're scheduled for is I'm not sure going to be what we're going to be able to do, because we might need more volunteers for tech help to do our theater sports improv night next week. So we might switch it up a bit. So those decisions are going to be made really, really quick here. And then I will pass that information along to you. So you can watch us on our YouTube channel, Virtual Variety Nights, or our Facebook page, Virtual Variety Night, or get information from our website. I would like to thank Andrew McHewitt for helping us out so much this evening. Also, a huge, huge thank you to our storytellers, Chichanie, Roxanne, Meredith. And also a huge thank you to Clifford, who we just had some technical troubles. He did have a story for you this evening and was going to come and speak with you. And so we'll make sure that we get him back again sometime to tell one of his stories. Have a lovely, lovely evening, everybody. Thank you also to GPLT. So we've branched a little bit off. Before we were under the umbrella of GPLT. Now we're just kind of embarking, and our virtual variety nights have kind of turning into their own thing. But thank you so, so much to the events planning committee at GPLT. Huge thank you to our storytellers, and huge thank you and acknowledgement of the Treaty 8 and Treaty 6 and any other lands that you're watching from or participating from. Happy Canada Day, the Canada that exists beneath our feet and not that existed long, long before it ever got a name. The land has been here. So thank you very, very much. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you next week.